This is war, the gloves are off, and what just happened in court has left everyone speechless. Blake Lively's subpoena was just quashed live in front of stunned onlookers, and our lawyers didn't just sit quietly, they fought back, they fought hard. They unleashed everything, and now the truth is unraveling in real time. What you're about to hear is not rumor, not speculation. This is what happened in court, this is what her team never wanted you to hear, and we're bringing it all to you raw. Aviv, because this time it's personal, this time it's public, and this time, Blake Lively might finally lose control. Blake Lively once thought she could silence every critic, every content creator, and every single voice that dared question her online legacy. She believed that with a handful of subpoenas, some carefully crafted legal threats, and a powerful team of lawyers, she could scrub the internet clean of every mention, every meme, and every piece of inconvenient truth that floated beyond her control. But what she never anticipated was the storm that would rise in response. The creators weren't intimidated, they were enraged, and as she doubled down on her threats and filed more subpoenas, targeting smaller creators, independent commentators, and voices from the very communities she had once courted, the resistance grew louder, stronger, more united. And today, in a courtroom packed with legal firepower, stern reporters, and quiet murmurs of disbelief, the entire country watched something shift, something break, something permanent. Blake's team walked in with arrogance, wearing the smug assurance of a legal team that thought they'd win again and again, but what they got instead was something they hadn't prepared for, because today they were challenged not just legally but morally, ethically, publicly, and yes, aggressively, because the creators had come with their own legal backup, lawyers who weren't afraid to speak truth, lawyers who weren't blinded by Hollywood shimmer, and celebrity status lawyers who had come with one mission: to shut her down live in an open court. And what began as a scheduled hearing over discovery exploded into a dramatic confrontation when her subpoena against one of the top targeted creators was not just questioned, it was obliterated. Motion after motion flew the room, electrified, as our lawyers laid bare the manipulative tactics, the abusive language, and the dishonest statements that formed the backbone of Blake's legal push. And the judge, a veteran of high-profile celebrity trials, didn't look impressed with her team's evasiveness, their lack of evidence, their refusal to answer direct questions. Every time her counsel stuttered or fumbled through a vague defense, the gallery shifted, leaning forward, sensing weakness, sensing blood, because this wasn't just about whether a subpoena would be enforced, this was about whether an entire campaign built on legal intimidation would be allowed to continue, or whether the court would finally say enough. And as our legal team dismantled her position line by line, citing inconsistencies, exposing contradictions, even reading from internal emails that contradicted her sworn affidavits, the tide began to turn. It wasn't just a hearing anymore, it was an unraveling, a collapse. And the judge finally leaned forward, voice steady, and declared that based on the evidence, the subpoena would be quashed, not narrowed, not delayed, but fully thrown out. In the courtroom went silent for a full 3 seconds before gasps, whispers, shock filled the air, and Blake's lawyer tried to recover, demanding a protective order to limit what could be shared from this moment onward, but that too was denied, because the court had seen enough. And what came next wasn't just procedural, it was volcanic, because our lawyers stepped forward and reminded everyone that this was just the beginning, because we were not done fighting, we were not done exposing. We were just getting started. And every camera turned, every phone streamed, every eye in the room locked on as the war Blake tried to hide became public, undeniable, irreversible, because now it wasn't just her truth against ours. Now the court had spoken, and the game had changed forever. And just when everyone thought that courtroom shock was the end of it, something even more devastating dropped, because within hours of the subpoena being quashed, the sealed filings that Blake Lively's team fought desperately to suppress began leaking, not from gossip blogs or unverified sources, but from certified documents, quietly uploaded into public record. And what they revealed was more damning than anyone expected: emails between her publicist and a crisis PR firm dating back months before the lawsuit began, conversations about targeting specific creators, discussions of how to weaponize community guidelines to force takedowns, lists of YouTubers, TikTokers, Twitter accounts, and even Reddit threads flagged for destruction, with a chilling note attached saying eliminate visibility before August, all of it showing deliberate intent not to protect reputation but to erase dissent. And the names on that list weren't trolls or hate accounts. They were whistleblowers, people who had once worked near her, who knew things, fans who started asking too many questions, and even other celebrities who refused to back her posturing in the courtroom may have quieted down, but the internet did. Not because within minutes the creators who had been listed began going live uploading reaction videos, reading line by line from those documents, and the narrative shifted, once again from Blake as a misunderstood victim of online bullying to Blake as the strategic architect of a digital purge, and the backlash was immediate firestorm level, trending on every platform as fans, former fans, and even Hollywood insiders reacted with shock, disgust, betrayal, and still she remained silent, issuing no statement, appearing in no interviews, hiding behind vague legal motions while her online persona disintegrated in real time. And the worst part is this wasn't even new behavior, because tucked deep inside those unsealed files were references to earlier incidents, similar strategies employed years ago when smaller scandals broke and were quickly scrubbed, and now it was obvious the playbook was real, it existed, it had names, dates, consultants, and instructions, and the lawyers weren't done either, because our team filed a cross motion almost immediately arguing that her entire case had been built in bad faith and demanding sanctions, not just against the celebrity herself, but against her counsel for knowingly misleading the court. And you could feel the fear ripple through her side as they scrambled to respond, tried to minimize the damage, but nothing could stop what had begun, because the creators were no longer afraid the silence was broken, and this time every legal filing, every redacted line, every private email was being read out loud in live streams, analyzed by legal experts, discussed on national television, and shared by influencers of millions of followers, and even former allies started distancing themselves, quietly unfollowing her, locking comments, disabling tags. But it was too late the moment she lost in court. The moment the subpoena was quashed, it gave everyone else permission to fight back, and fight back they did, with receipts, screenshots, contracts, timelines showing how far the manipulation went, how many people were pressured, silenced, threatened. And now the narrative was slipping from her control, spiraling into something even her high-priced attorneys couldn't spin, because this wasn't just a legal loss, it was a total collapse of trust, reputation, control. And now people were asking deeper questions about the original claims, about the real purpose behind the lawsuits, about whether this was ever about defamation or if it was always about domination. And in one viral clip that racked up 2 million views in under 3 hours, a creator stared into the camera and said, "This isn't just about me or anyone on that list. This is about what happens when a celebrity thinks they can sue the truth out of existence." And you know what, he was right, because now even journalists were digging deeper, mainstream outlets were picking up the story, and the next court date wasn't just a hearing, it was being treated like an event, a showdown. And for the first time since this all began, it was clear Blake Lively was losing the court of public opinion, and fast, because now her silence was no longer mysterious or strategic, it looked guilty and cowardly, and the creators weren't backing down. If anything, they were stepping up, because this wasn't about revenge, this was about justice. And after what happened today, it's clearer than ever this war is only just beginning, and just when it felt like things couldn't possibly get worse for Blake Lively, the third wave hit, and it hit harder than anything before, because this time it wasn't just legal documents or social media fury. This time it was voices, actual people, creators, professionals, and former insiders speaking out in full, with no masks, no aliases, and no hesitation. And what started as a handful of brave creators going live and reading through the documents turned into a full-on media campaign, a coordinated eruption of testimony that had been sitting in silence for years. One by one they came forward, former assistants, background staff, stylists, consultants, even digital marketers hired to boost her brand, all confirming the same terrifying pattern that Blake Lively had not only known about these suppression tactics, but had personally approved them, down to the targeting lists, down to the language used in takedown requests, down to the deceptive claims of harassment to trigger platform bans. And one whistleblower in particular set the entire internet ablaze when she revealed she had kept detailed journal screenshots and even voice recordings of meetings with Blake's inner circle, where strategy sessions were held weekly with one objective: destroy, dissent, erase, criticism, control the narrative, and make it look clean. And just when people were still trying to digest that bombshell, the whistleblower played one of those recordings in a live stream, and the voice was unmistakable. It was Blake's, and she was laughing, casually talking about how easy it was to get videos pulled down if you used the right keywords and filed them through a third party. So it didn't trace back to her. The internet exploded. The reaction was nuclear. Hashtags like hashtag exposed by Blake and hashtag justice for creators began trending. Worldwide, and in response, our legal team filed an emergency motion to preserve all potential evidence from her hand, because now there was reason to believe there was a massive cover-up in progress, and you could feel it in the air the way Blake's PR machine suddenly froze. No tweets, no press releases, no orchestrated statements. Just this eerie silence like the storm before the flood. And then came the next twist, because while the internet was catching its breath, a judge issued a formal notice demanding her legal team address the leaked recordings in court within 48 hours, and suddenly the silence became a liability. It wasn't just suspicious anymore, it was legally dangerous, and the courtroom atmosphere shifted. What once felt like a celebrity-driven defamation battle was now being treated like an investigation into abuse of process, witness intimidation, and malicious litigation, and even rival attorneys watching from the sidelines began commenting live on legal panels, calling it one of the most reckless public relations collapses in recent memory. And the creators who had once feared speaking out were now emboldened and united, pooling evidence, building coalitions, reaching out to watchdog organizations and nonprofit legal teams to defend the broader issue of creator suppression, because this wasn't just about Blake anymore. It was about how the entertainment industry had used wealth and reputation to threaten people into silence, and how platforms had quietly enabled it all under the guise of moderation. And the internet's rage turned into something more focused, more strategic. Creators began calling for hearings, policy reform, transparency, and DMCA practices, and suddenly a movement had formed, all because Blake Lively thought she could bully the truth out of existence, and now that truth was punching back with a vengeance. And even her former defenders online were switching sides, posting apology videos confessing how they had once dismissed the claims or stayed quiet to protect their careers, but now they realized how deep the rot went. And one viral apology video from a well-known influencer ended with her crying, saying, "I was told to never speak badly about her, that it would ruin my brand, but now I see it was always about protecting hers." And that clip was stitched thousands of times, amplified by creators around the world, and even international media began digging into similar patterns, with other celebrities asking whether this was a Blake problem or a systemic problem. And through all of it, our team stayed on course, presenting evidence in court, preparing countersuits, demanding sanctions, and pushing to make the next hearing not just another procedural step, but a reckoning. And that's when it hit everyone. Blake may have won temporary silence through her subpoenas and threats, but by doing so she had declared war, and now everyone was fighting back. And just when the legal team thought they had seen everything, just when the dust had barely begun to settle from the avalanche of creator testimonies and whistleblower evidence that rocked the entire industry, the next bombshell dropped without warning, in a move that sent ripples through both the court of law and the court of public opinion. The judge issued an emergency motion compelling Blake Lively's legal team to produce all internal communications linked to any third-party takedown contractor, digital reputation firm, or legal consultant involved in flagging or removing content related to the creators who had been named in the subpoenas. And the courtroom gasped, because this wasn't just discovery. This was the beginning of a full forensic examination, and everyone knew what that meant. Emails, call logs, invoices, payment trails, metadata, everything Blake's team thought they could hide behind privacy walls was now going to be dragged into the open, and the fear in her camp was palpable. Her lawyers tried to stall, they filed motions to delay, they claimed executive privilege, but the judge wasn't having it. He slammed down the ruling and made it clear that this court would not tolerate manipulation or obstruction. And for the first time since this drama began, the power shifted entirely away from Blake. Her control, her influence, her PR firewall had collapsed, and the creators she tried to silence were now the ones setting the tone. And just when it seemed like things couldn't unravel any faster, leaked internal documents from a now-defunct firm tied to her digital suppression efforts surfaced on a message board and were quickly verified by multiple independent sources. And what they revealed was stunning. They showed that over 50 YouTube channels had been flagged under coordinated efforts using fabricated community guideline violations. In one case, a creator had been reported for violent extremism because they called out Blake for her silence in a now-deleted vlog. Another had received a copyright strike for using a red carpet photo licensed under fair use. And what's worse, the leak showed that some of these takedown requests had originated from accounts with fake names but matching IP addresses, all tied back to one particular digital marketing agency based in Los Angeles. And that agency had been under contract with one person only, Blake Lively, and the internet lost it within hours. Dozens of videos were posted analyzing the metadata, tracing connections between deleted content and legal filings. Creators compared timelines, timestamps, digital fingerprints, and suddenly the narrative was no longer speculative. It was undeniable, and in response, our legal team prepared a counteroffensive, not just to clear our name, but to trigger what they called a systemic audit of how platforms were used as tools for private censorship. And at the same time, the pressure reached Capitol Hill. Congressional aides confirmed they had received formal petitions to investigate celebrity abuse of takedown systems and media manipulation. And while that was happening, another twist surfaced, one that no one saw coming. A former intern from a major Hollywood PR firm posted anonymously before confirming their identity, and they claimed that Blake had been part of closed-door meetings with executives where lists of creators, journalists, and influencers were categorized into friendly, neutral, and threat, and that those labeled threat had been monitored, tracked, and reported using covert methods. And while at first some thought it was just another rumor, that changed when screenshots surfaced confirming dates matching known actions taken against creators, and that post was shared millions of times across social media, turning Blake Lively from a glamorous A-lister into a symbol of covert suppression. And the backlash turned brutal, and widespread. Industry insiders began speaking to journalists off the record, describing an entire sub-industry built around manipulating search results, suppressing critical voices, and using legal intimidation as a smokescreen for reputation laundering. And Blake became the center of it all, and with every new revelation came more subpoenas, more court filings, more live streams breaking it all down. And still her side said nothing, as if the silence would somehow slow the storm. But it didn't. The silence only made it louder, more ominous, more incriminating. And then finally, after weeks of pure chaos, a judge scheduled an evidentiary hearing, open to the public and press, and the internet prepared like it was the trial of the decade, with commentators, lawyers, and journalists all planning to livestream every second. And when the court doors open and our lawyers step in with the full weight of truth behind them, this won't just be a legal hearing, this will be the reckoning Blake tried to silence us. But now the whole world is watching, and we are fighting back louder, smarter, and live. And now, with the dust still thick in the air, with every lawyer breathless, and every viewer still holding onto the edge of their seat, with clipped footage going viral on every platform, with timelines overtaken by court updates, takedown reversals, subpoenas gone wild, and leaks spilling like open floodgates, the truth has finally reached the light. And no matter how hard Blake Lively's team tried to bury it, burn it, erase it, or reshape it, the evidence refused to die, it refused to sleep. And so did we from the first time her team tried to silence a small creator with a bogus legal threat. From the moment we were told to take our videos down to protect her image, from that first flag that disappeared a channel overnight, we knew this wasn't just about free speech. This was about power and control, and how some would weaponize the law just to crush truth. But in the end, truth doesn't fold, it multiplies. And that's exactly what happened here. Because her team underestimated one thing, they thought we'd stay quite afraid, outmatched, too small to fight. But we turned our stories into evidence, our voices into records, our platforms into megaphones, and together the community exposed an entire system of silence, built on privilege and protected by shadows. And now those shadows are burning fast, because every lie that was spun, every creator that was targeted, every piece of manipulated content is now under court-ordered scrutiny. And this isn't just about Blake anymore. This is about the industry that protected her, the agencies that enabled her, the algorithms that complied with her requests without a second glance, and the courts that are finally asking why. Because the moment the judge ruled against her motion to seal records, everything shifted. And now, with creator-led legal initiatives drawing support, with new channels rising from the ashes of censorship, with journalists, mainstream and indie rallying behind the cause, with tech platforms being subpoenaed themselves for their role in enforcing faulty takedown requests, it is no longer a creator versus celebrity battle. It is a referendum on who owns truth in a world where fame once ruled everything, and that fame is crumbling minute by minute, stream by stream, post by post. Because while Blake's camp sits in silence, spinning internal chaos, the community outside the courtroom is documenting everything in real time, every deleted tweet, every retracted statement, every change in legal representation, every contradicting timeline. And now even her allies are backing away, quietly distancing their brands, distancing their names, hoping they're not the next to be dragged into the storm. But it's too late. The storm is here, and it's not stopping, because creators no longer fear the lawsuit, they fear silence, and they will not be silent ever again. So to the fans who stood with us, to the lawyers Who fought back lived. To the millions who refused to look away, this isn't the end, this is the beginning of accountability. Real, transparent, loud, unfiltered accountability, and whether or not Blake Lively ever speaks again, whether her team spins another PR stunt, whether her allies hold the line or abandon ship, the legacy of this battle will haunt every agency that ever thought a cease and desist could rewrite reality. And now with precedent on our side, with public support unshaken, with receipts in hand and the full truth archived forever in public record, the silence they wanted is gone, and it's never coming back. So if you're watching this, if you've made it through every motion leak fight and live stream, then you already know this war wasn't just about content. It was about control, and this time we took it back.